How's everyone doing? Lucas Myers here. Hopefully you saw my first video and read the syllabus so you know my name. Uh, Glad to have you here and excited to dive into week 3 of the nervous system. I know that we cover a lot of material in a short amount of time in this class, not necessarily to the depth that you might cover it in a bigger, longer class, but just enough to get an idea of what the body's made up of, what it's like, how it functions, and how that applies to exercise. If you're taking the personal training certificate program here and want to become a certified ACE personal trainer, make sure you're really sticking to the information I give you and studying that, especially in the book, because that will help guide you towards certification, which you'll have to study before you take that as well. But all right, well, we're diving into the nervous system. So I'm going to pull up the week 3 explained here. And for the first part of the nervous system in this module, we're just going to be looking at the overview of the nervous system, in terms of how it's structured or classified in our bodies, or how we organize it kind of conceptually. So you have a central nervous system, a peripheral nervous system, and then underneath that, you also have an autonomic nervous system, okay, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And then you're going to look at the anatomy of a neuron, which is kind of one of the more microscopic ways to look at the nervous system. And if you think about it like a muscle fiber, like you talked about last module, a neuron interacts with that muscle fiber to cause a muscle fiber's sarcomeres to contract to allow a larger muscle to contract, okay? So you're going to be diving into that in this module, as well as looking at how does a neuron actually fire? Like when we say our nerves fire a message, right, or they send us a chemical message or electrical stimulus, what is that? Okay, and so we call those things action potentials. And so you're going to learn about that and what the heck those are and how sodium ions are involved in that. And that's the main gist of week 3 with the nervous system for this course. And then in week 4, we'll dive further into the nervous system and look at how the nervous system adapts to exercise, etc. Now, there are some cool activities, well, at least I think they're cool, that you're going to do in this module. So let's go to week 3 here. Computer's a little slow. All right, so the week 3 explained, start here. That's what we were just looking at. Make sure you stick to those outcomes and you're watching this video. There's some optional videos here that are really good. Khan Academy is awesome. Those are probably going to go a little more in depth than you need to know, but feel free to watch those if you want. And then we have some readings and videos on the nervous system. Pre-lab number 3, it's not a super long one. I'll pull it up here for you. So here's pre-lab number 3. You'll complete those 5 things. Go back to the modules. Don't feel like you need to take notes on that. You can pull them up in your own course, okay? And you'll turn that into the pre-lab number 3 assignment. Then you have a neuron to sarcomere contraction steps. Now, what the heck is that? That sounds like a mouthful, right? Remember, sarcomeres are this small unit, and there's millions of them that make up our muscle fibers. And basically what that is just a bunch of proteins. This is what the sarcomere is, that interact to create tension. And that tension allows us to produce force in our muscles and contract at the macro level. So how do we go from a little neuron that sends a message down to a muscle fiber that causes a little sarcomere to contract? That's what you're going to be figuring out. And there's not that many steps. I could make it really long and lots of steps and super complex. I simplified it for what you need for this class that I think would be important for you when you left this course, just in general to be able to know for your body. You won't be able to see the answer key yet, but I will post that after you turn in that assignment. And then you also have a nervous system and exercise challenge. Think of this like a lab activity where you're going to get to basically kind of document the neurological adaptations you think you're feeling post-exercise. Because what happens, and you're going to learn about this in week 4, so this is kind of a precursor lab to further information that you're going to learn about, is if I go to the weight room, right, and I do some bench press and I up the weight that day and I'm pumping and I'm getting stronger, and then I come back 2 days later and I do it again and I can do maybe 10 more pounds. Now, my muscle itself hasn't really gotten a lot bigger, but what happens is my nervous system has caused adaptations to occur to allow my muscles to be stronger. Okay, so hypertrophy hasn't necessarily occurred, which is the building of muscle, but our nervous system has recruited more muscle fibers and there's been more adaptations occurring, which you'll learn about, that allows me to be stronger or have more stamina, etc. So you're going to learn more about that in week 4, but you're going to end the week on doing this lab and documenting it, what you might feel. Okay, so you have to pick a simple exercise and you'll do it for 4 to 6 days and then write it up and turn it in. So make sure you start this activity soon. I'll make sure I post that in the Explain This Here assignment. And sorry, I paused for a second. An email came across my screen that caught my eye. But make sure that you pay attention to this when you're starting the module, so that you complete this lab early in the week, or start on it early in the week, so you're not trying to cram it in at the end. Okay, and I'll make sure I put that in the document on the Explain Here for this module. Okay, now when we're talking about the nervous system, okay, we have our central nervous system. All right, so that was, if we go back to that Explain Start Here page, and you're going to read about the central nervous system involves the brain. Right, here's our brain stem that then goes down. My spinal cord's falling apart here. And it then goes down to our spinal cord that runs through our vertebrae, right? And all these yellow things that are coming out are your peripheral nerves that are coming out and going back in of the spinal cord. So everything inside the spinal cord and the brain is the central nervous system. Everything outside of that is your peripheral nervous system. Okay, that's how that's classified. All right. Now, if we were to cut this spinal cord in half and take a look at the spinal cord, we might see something like this. Okay, and what we're going to see here is we're going to see this kind of butterfly-looking thing. And what we're looking at is we're looking at information that's coming back into the spinal cord and then information going out the spinal cord. Okay, so this is what we call the dorsal root. Okay, information comes in here. Okay, it gets processed here, or it gets sent up the spinal cord to the brain, processed and sent back down, and then it goes back out to the body. All right, so these all represent neurons that are coming into the spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system, central nervous system. All right, the difference in color has to do with gray and white matter, which you'll learn about when you get to action potential. But gray matter is what we call unmyelinated axons, which means they have none of this special stuff around it called myelin, which is like an insulator that speeds up the messaging. And then the white is the myelinated area. Okay, generally, things that are going further into your body, peripheral nervous system, are all going to be myelinated because they're traveling a longer distance and they need quicker reactions. Shorter distances in the central nervous system might not be myelinated, and that's your gray matter. They don't have to travel as far. You don't necessarily have that insulation to make it quicker. And there's a lot of other things that go with that. We're just not going to get into that depth. Okay, but this would be a microscopic version if we cross-sectioned the spinal cord and looked at it on a microscope. Okay, we've just blown it up in a model. Now, there's a lot more to the nervous system in terms of brain and brain function. We're just going to be sticking to the things that really apply to exercise. And then in week 4, we'll dive more into part of the brain parts that brain structures that really maybe have to do with hormones or have to do with neurotransmitters that might impact our body and have to do with exercise. Okay, so that's week 3. Hope you enjoy the week and the content, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.